hope everyone can find a new link. How's everyone doing tonight?
I'll share the new one.
All right, so we're running live. Okay, so hi everybody, my name is Jen Devor. I am a candidate for the Office of City Commissioner. This is an office that oversees all elections in Philadelphia. I'm here tonight for our first Better Elections Facebook Live Q&A, and we're going to talk about voting machine technology. I'm here with my friend and neighbor, Rich Garella, who is a voting expert with lots of great experience, who's been able to download me on the entire wealth of his knowledge on this information. And I thought, as we were learning about it, that this is something that everyone could use to know about. So Rich, how did you become an election expert?
Well, I don't really walk around with an election expert t-shirt on or anything like that. I was the national coordinator for a campaign by MoveOn.org for election integrity.
Great group.
When we were first working against electronic voting machines. And since then I've been a member of kind of an informal national, or now it's a bit formal, national network of election administrators, academics, and other experts that have been looking at election security, cybersecurity, machine design, ballot design, everything to do with how to make our elections more secure and more reliable and easier for people.
That's great. And so obviously this is something that affects everyone, every voter across the country, but why is this such a hot topic right now here in Philadelphia?
Well, right now there's been a number of rules changed, and there's a few different layers to it, but the state, in the person of Governor Tom Wolf and the Department of State, have basically changed the requirements for the voting systems that every county in Pennsylvania has to use. So each county controls its own elections, but they have to be approved by the state in order for their votes to count when elections actually happen. So, I should mention this was prompted by, in part, by what happened in 2016 when there were a number of close elections, including in Pennsylvania. There was a big lawsuit, and one of the outcomes of that lawsuit was that the state agreed to introduce voting systems where they could audit the vote afterwards and make sure that it's correct.
Yeah.
The current machines that we've been using in Philadelphia,
the big guys that you press the green button at the end,
the big gigantic refrigerator-sized push-button machines, they have no way to audit whether they're correct or not.
Yeah.
They might be correct, they might not be. There will never be a way to check. The law actually requires them to be auditable. So it's possible that they've been breaking the law for 20, 30 years. Yeah,
so no matter what the outcomes are, they should be able to be audible in the need that they need to be. So so what does the timeline for this look like? So from my understanding, there was an RFP put out by the city around November 30th maybe, and can you talk a little bit about what some of the next steps might be?
Right. So each county, Philadelphia is a city and a county in effect.
Yeah.
So each county has to figure out which voting machine it should buy, and there are about 5 major vendors of voting machines and systems, and they each have various products on offer. So the county of Philadelphia put out an RFP, a request for proposal, saying here's our requirements that reflect pretty much the state requirements and maybe a bit more. And they allow the vendors to come and say, here's what we're selling. And they'll have a procurement process, and it has to go through a committee that's related to, it's a complicated budget.
Sure, I'm sure. Yeah, that's understandable.
Competitive bidding and so forth. But ultimately, City Council and the mayor are going to sign off on the purchase of something like $22 million worth of voting technology. And those giant machines will go into a dumpster somewhere.
Interesting.
A very big dumpster.
Yeah, I have a conversation with the Office of Sustainability about that, about that part.
Maybe they can build an artificial reef.
Yeah. So what are, in your opinion, based on the different research that you've done, and from my understanding, you've actually demoed some of the machines at an expo. What do you think are what do you think is the most reliable system in general, and then maybe you can elaborate on some features that, whether we can get them or not, based on budget, etc., would be great to have.
Right. So the key question, I think there's a lot of different features among the different machines,
Mm-hmm.
and it can get and there's a lot of them are important, but I would divide the systems into two main categories.
Okay.
So there's one system where you have a device called a BMD, a ballot marking device,
Okay.
which is usually like a big touch screen where you see your different choices.
Mm-hmm.
And in some places, those things you just used to pick and it would record your vote and you'd walk away, no audit trail. The new requirement for having paper ballots means that this machine is going to produce a paper ballot
Mm-hmm.
for you. So you'll
Okay.
pick on a screen with the touch screen BMD. You'll choose on the screen and the machine will produce a paper ballot, which at least in theory you look at to make sure it's correct and it's what you voted.
Mm-hmm.
And then either the machine dumps it into a secure ballot box or you take it and put it through a scanner into a ballot box. So that every system involves some of those. But one category.
Well, let me just touch on that for 1 second, though.
Okay.
So BMD is ballot marking device, and so what you're saying is it'll print the ballot, and then the voter can confirm that that's what they voted. So that's what we mean when we say voter verified.
Right.
That's what that is. So, and I think the way you
Right.
described it to me is that the intent is in the voter's mind, how they want to vote, and then they vote, and then they check the sheet to verify that that's actually what they intended.
Right, because
Yeah.
here's the key
Mhm.
thing that any good voting system needs to have. The intent comes from the voter's mind. It's expressed by something the voter does, whether it's pressing buttons or using a pen.
Yeah.
It's recorded on some permanent medium like paper,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's separated from the voter anonymously so that we don't know who voted which
Yeah.
way. And it's kept securely so that it can be checked and counted
Mhm.
any number of times
Mhm.
that's necessary.
Yeah.
So that's always the central purpose, is getting the voter intent reliably onto the secure medium
Yeah.
without knowing which voter voted which way. Okay,
Okay.
that was a good way
Yeah.
to back up.
Yeah. Good. So
Good
I
to
mean,
back up
this
to that.
is this is a voting machine,
Right.
kind of, right?
So you
Yeah.
could say this is a ballot. This is a kind of a
Yeah.
ballot marking
Yeah.
device. If you have a paper ballot, a pen is
Yeah.
a ballot marking device. Costs 50 cents.
I've been wanting to make that joke all day, so I'm glad that I got that in.
We have
Yeah.
a question that may be helpful here.
Okay. We have a question.
Can you walk folks through what the voter's actual experience is from start to finish when they go and
With
they
this specific system that you're talking about.
Okay. Okay. Let me do it this way. I'll walk through the voter's experience when they're using this touchscreen ballot marking device.
Okay.
And keep in mind they're not all exactly the same.
Yeah.
Essentially, after you register in and they say yes, you can go vote, you go over to the machine. You probably, in some cases, there's a curtain. You see a big touch screen in front of you. It shows the candidates and the elections. You make your selections. It probably shows you a review screen. Are these your choices?
Yeah.
And you say yes, and it gives you a button, just like the green button on the old Danaher machines. Basically do it. Vote
Yeah.
no. Then, in most cases, you would see a piece of paper, which is your ballot, come out of the machine, maybe behind a plastic shield, maybe not, and it's printing your vote and the thing is appearing, and then you can see it, as I said, possibly behind a plastic shield, and then it goes into a box by itself, or maybe it comes out in your hand so you can look at it, which is better.
Like a receipt.
Well, it's not,
Not a
we don't
receipt.
call it a
I guess not
receipt
a
because you
receipt, yeah.
don't get to keep it.
That's right. Okay.
So we
Yeah.
just try to stay
Yeah.
away from the word
Okay.
receipt.
All right.
You don't get to keep it
Don't use
because
that
then
word, yeah.
how would they know how you voted?
Absolutely.
You walked out
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
So then, but you inspect it, and then you have a choice, whether you have it in your hand or not, you have a choice of saying, okay, is this what you voted or not?
Yeah.
And essentially, if you say, no, that's not what I meant to do, you can reject that ballot. It'll either get voided out in the machine and you can and eject it into your hand with a big void mark across it.
Yeah.
Or if it came out in your hand, you could just go back, you would go back to the polling location officials and say, hey, this is not how I want to vote. And they would write void across it and put it in a pile, and you would get to go again and to make a new ballot. Because the machine, in that case, the machine has nothing to do with counting the votes. It's only helping you mark the ballot.
Yeah.
Just like, it's instead of this. So that's basically how a ballot marking device works. And I should mention the other thing about ballot marking devices is that they can have extra inputs, assistive devices added to them, like joysticks, sip and puff, things to account for, to help people with different disabilities who might need those things to vote.
Yeah.
Now I want to go back to the two categories.
Yeah, so what's the other category?
We have a clarifying question
question.
Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for calling.
How many redo options does one get if they were to void their ballot?
That's really up to the
that's an
local.
interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really up to the local rules. So the machines normally can be modified to meet whatever the local procedures and rules are. If it's a machine that is really just doing nothing more than printing ballots for you, in theory, it could be an unlimited number of times because, it would be just like if you were filling a ballot with a pen and you said, oh, I screwed this one up. Oh, I screwed this one up too.
Yeah.
The polling officials will get annoyed after a while, but there's nobody's forcing you to put the ballot into the box either.
Okay. So that's the first or one model, and then
Right. Well, that's the ballot marking, the touchscreen ballot marking device. Now I want to describe the principal two categories that I think are the most important choice facing the city of Philadelphia when it comes to choosing which voting system to buy. Some of these systems force every voter to vote on one of these touchscreen ballot marking devices. So when you go in, you would see 2 or maybe 3 of them in the polling station.
which we have a lot of in Philadelphia. Yeah.
Yeah, there are 1,600 divisions,
Yeah.
and there's about
Over.
800,
Yeah.
1,612 or something.
Yeah.
And there's something like 800 polling locations, because some of those have 2 or 3
Are there in the same? Yeah.
divisions in them. Every one of those divisions would need 2 or 3 of these
Yeah.
machines. And everybody would vote on those would mark the ballots using those machines. Plus, there's one scanner for people to put their ballots into. It's basically a ballot box with a scanner attached, where you deposit your ballot afterwards. So that's one choice. Everyone votes on ballot marking devices. The other choice is that the vast majority of voters, by default, vote using this as a ballot marking device. So they get a piece of paper and they make marks in little bubbles, and the technology for this is way better than it used to be for being able to read those accurately. And most voters do that, and there's one of the touchscreen ballot marking devices because it has the assistive technology added to it, and by law you have to have one of those in every polling place, which is completely reasonable.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That makes sense. Yeah.
So there are your 2 choices. Now, why would you have, so the question becomes, why is this an important distinction? Everybody voting on touch screens versus people voting by hand and just one ballot marking device. And there's really a few reasons that almost every nationally recognized election security and usability expert says that hand marking is the way to go. And there are several important reasons, and I'll kind of run through them.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless there's any other questions coming, right? Okay.
We'll go through it. Yeah.
All right. So the number one core reason is that when you have a hand-marked ballot, there's nothing in between the voter and the ballot. So that means a whole raft of questions that have always come up about voter verification really no longer exist. This question of, a machine produce my ballot? Did the voter really look at it? Can the voter really do a good job of reviewing it, which a lot of studies show that they cannot, because the ballots are too complicated.
Yeah.
If you've marked it with your own hand, then you were verifying it as you went along. If you screwed it up, you know that you screwed it up and you got a new one. There's no question about voter verification. So that's a huge reason to use hand-marked paper ballots. At the same time, you remove this layer of technology that could have, where you have to worry about software problems or even the introduction of malware or some kind of hacking in the programming that could be changing, that could be marking the wrong votes onto papers because they know that most people don't check them. That's possible. You just get rid of this whole bunch of complications. Another thing that makes them better is that they're very resilient when it comes to power outages. If you have a power outage and people are filling their ballots by hand, they can just keep filling them out. And they can get put into the scanner later by the polling place officials. It's no problem.
I imagine because multiple people can do this at the same time too, so that'll help with lines and how long it takes to vote, right?
Absolutely. If you have 2 or 3, I mean, we've all seen it in Philadelphia at the giant Devor machines. 1 or 2 slow voters in those booths creates a tremendous backup. If people are filling their ballots by hand, there's really no limit to how many people can be voting at the same time. You can be standing, writing it against the wall, you can be sitting in a chair, sitting at a table, and that means that the lines, and these systems are used in a lot of places, and the lines practically disappear.
That's incredible.
And and maybe the last reason is a couple more. But these
I'm
are
sure,
And probably the last reason is it's a heck of a lot cheaper. Because instead of buying 2 or 3 of these very expensive touchscreen ballot marking devices, you only have to buy 1 per precinct. 1,600 precincts, so you're buying about 1,600 of them instead of buying 3,000 to 4,000 of them, and they cost thousands of dollars a piece. So that's we're talking about maybe $10–15 million that could be spent on something else.
And storage too.
Perfect time for this question that just came through from Tommy.
Great. So Tommy wants to know, how much will this cost the city? Which is that's a hard question to answer because we're not in the decision making.
The city has allocated $22 million, we understand. And that seems like a pretty reasonable estimate. It might come out to a little more, it might come out to a little less. There's also some state
I was going
money
to say,
that's coming to help. I think they're talking about 10 or 12 million in state money.
So it's not nothing.
It's definitely not nothing. If you break it up to how much you're you're paying to collect each vote, you're really talking $5 or $10 or something like that. If I'm remembering right. Which is, it's a fairly expensive system for what it does, but what it does is very important.
And then as we were saying too, again, with the storage, the maintenance, and facilities that are involved, those costs come down too. So it's not just the purchasing price, but the year-round expenses that they occur.
Right. If you only have 1,600 of these big, heavy, expensive machines instead of 3,000 or 4,000, you're saving money on storage and moving as well.
So we're talking a lot, obviously, about what machines we think would be the best purchase, what features we have, but there is a chance for you viewers at home to also voice your opinion. The City Commissioner's Office are going to be holding 2 public comment sessions. The first one is going to be tomorrow night at 6 p.m. And the other one will...
That's Thursday, January...
That's right, that's
Thursday, January 10th, 2019.
That's right,
And if you're watching in the distant future.
Yes, and then the other one will be Saturday, January 12th, 2019 at 9:30 in the morning. It's on the Columbus Boulevard. I meant to write the address down so I could say it.
520 North Delaware.
520 Spring Garden.
Or 520 North Delaware.
We should have this.
It's at the corner of Spring Garden.
At the corner.
Delaware Ave.
Say it again clearly for the...
520 North Delaware Ave. That's at the corner of Columbus Boulevard and Spring Garden. That's in the City Commissioner's office.
Yes. Yeah. Now, the city commissioners certainly have, years of expertise and experience in running elections. And so they, them being tasked with this decision makes sense. But I think giving voters the opportunity, not just voters, but committee people, election poll workers, the citizens of Philadelphia that are going to interact with this machine twice a year, should also have a chance to state their preferences, their concerns, really like their wish list for these things. And it's not just what they want, but what experiences have you had that you think these new machines could help make better? So we want to talk a little bit about how to how to have a great comment at these sessions. So if you do decide to go on either Thursday or Saturday, we encourage you to not only come and be in attendance, but to also share a short statement. Keep them short. Keep them to about 1 to 2 minutes. As you're writing it out, think about maybe 150 words. Definitely come prepared with something pre-written. I've testified in front of city council a few times and in other areas, and it can be a little nerve-wracking standing up in front of a room, hopefully that's full of people. So you want to make sure that you prepared, maybe just practice saying it a few times. You want to keep it short too and concise, which I know can also be tough, especially when you're as passionate about this stuff like Rich and I have. But I think the most important part is just showing up. If this is something that you're interested in, if this is something that affects you, again, as a committee person, as an election board worker, and just as a voter, try to make it to one of these 2 sessions. And again, even if you don't say anything, just having a physical preference there and showing the city that this is something that the citizens care about, I think will really send a really great message.
This is very, very important for people to show, even as Jen said, even if you don't feel comfortable testifying, and you don't have to be an expert to testify.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely not. You just have to be a voter.
But even if you don't feel comfortable doing that, to show that you're interested in the job that they're doing, making this selection, that you're interested in which of these machines or devices the city chooses, and you're paying attention, means that we might end up with a better system than we otherwise would. Why? Because the people of the city who have been voting for years and years, we understand the experience of voting and how it is to use these voting systems. We're the customers in this situation, and we have to make our voice heard.
Yeah, if you've ever waited in a long line to vote, if you've ever had a problem with the voting machine malfunctioning on you, if you've been an election board worker and have had trouble setting up the machines, the trainings too, I mean, that's going to be a big part, right? When we get new machines, we need new training, so voicing how we can make these trainings more effective and more accessible, I think is also really important. Please.
One other reason to this list. If you're a person who's concerned about the integrity of our elections and the confidence that people have in them, what we want to get is a system where it's very clear how it works, where everybody can see and understand that their vote really is counted correctly and really goes into that secure ballot box the way they filled it out. That does a lot for people to say this means something, and it means more people will go and vote. Yeah. So that's going to be Thursday, January 10th at 6 p.m. and then Saturday, January 12th at 9:30 a.m. Do we have any other questions? All that info is posted.
And we'll include that information in the link of this,
like
and
down there. Can I do
this? Right down.
Right down
it's
there?
right there.
Or maybe it's up there.
It's somewhere, but you'll find it. We'll get it to you. Anything else you think before we start to wrap up?
We don't have any more questions.
Okay, great. Yeah.
What is one thing you want people to think about doing or questioning? Who do you want them to call? What can people do if they can't go to the hearings?
Yeah. This is Gretchen, by the way. You can't see her, but she's producing this whole thing tonight. So, yeah. So, what would you say? I mean, this is your chance to speak to the people.
I think if you follow some of the links that go with this and read just one of the short one-page things about that I think will be posted there, explaining again, and maybe a little bit better than I did, the main choice that's facing us. Or you have a thing, generosity coming?
Yeah, I'll have an op-ed published well, it's on the website now on generosity.org. I'll also post the link
Yeah,
that's
a good place.
Yeah.
That's a good place to get a little refresher.
Yeah.
On this very central question of what kind of system is it? Is it going to be all touchscreen voting, or is it going to be hand-marked voting? That to me is the key difference. And if you were going to call or ever speak to your city council person, or call the city commissioner's office, or show up at one of these hearings, I think that's the thing that needs to be transmitted, is that we need hand-marked voting, not all touchscreen voting. And this is, and while we want them to get this done, they don't need to rush the process of choosing and make the wrong choice.
I think that's great. Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Rich, for tuning in, or for sharing they're tuning in. Thank you, Rich, for sharing your expertise with us. Thanks for everyone that's watching this. As I stated at the beginning, my name is Jen Devor. I'm running for City Commissioner, the office that oversees all elections in Philadelphia. I'm trying to do the job of a commissioner while running for it, and this is what my campaign is all about, is breaking down information in an easy and accessible way, making people feel empowered to understand how their government works for them, and to have better elections for everybody. If you like what you heard tonight and want to stay in touch with my campaign, you can visit my website, jendevor.com. You can follow me on social media, Facebook, which you're already at now, so thank you. On Twitter, it's just Jen Devor, JENDEVOR, and then Instagram, it's Jen Devor Official. I couldn't just get Jen Devor, someone had it. So thank you guys so much. And Election Day is May 21st, and we'll be doing more of these. So if you have an idea of a topic around elections and voting that you want to break down, we can get some more experts in and talk about it. So thanks so much.
No, I want to be the expert every time.
Okay, well, we'll have Rich back too. Thanks, guys.